Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great short week so far. Beautiful day here in the Philadelphia area. I'm Bob Cooney with Anthony SanFilippo, joining us from a brothel somewhere. There's a lot of pounding going on there, but not exactly sure what that's all about.
Can I explain?
No, I think we'll just go with the brothel. I think people are more interested, but go ahead. Yes, explain.
We're building a podcast studio for Fideri News Network, you see over my shoulder, which is the owner of OnPattison. And the studio is almost set. Like I am sitting at the we have a couple things that still need to be finalized. You can see, like, we have mics, but they're not hooked up just yet. So we're just going to get a couple things finalized. So I show up at the office this morning, and I come up to the studio, and all of a sudden there's all this banging that we're getting the roof replaced on the building. So I'm like, all right, do I go downstairs to my office? And I went and sat in my office. It's just as loud, if not louder, down there. So I apologize for this, but I will mute myself when I'm not talking.
Okay, that works. Nothing wrong with that. We got a lot to talk about. In about 20 minutes, we're going to be joined by Mike Sealski, a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, who's been around for many years. Funny story about Mike Sealski, Anthony. This plays right into what you always say about me. You always say, like, oh, Bob has so many different stories about people that we know in the business. Well, our oldest son was graduating from LaSalle years back. And, we're getting ready for graduation or whatever. And I said, do we know who the commencement speaker is, Bob? And he's like, yeah, it's some guy that works for the Inquirer, Sealski or something. I said, Mike Sealski? He said, yeah. So a few days later, I'm in Camden at the Sixers practice facility, and I'm sitting in the media room with Keith Pompey, and I see Sealski coming, but he doesn't know that I see him coming. So he walks into the room, and before he can say anything, I'm acting like I'm having a conversation with Pompey, and I'm like, yeah, can you believe this? I pay all that money for my kid to go to LaSalle for 4 years, and Mike Sealski's the commencement speaker? I'm like, nothing against Sealski, nice guy, but are you kidding me? And Mike, like, sheepishly comes around, he's like, hey, Bob, and I'm like, oh, Mike, what's up, man? Yeah, so we had a good laugh about that one. But Mike's written a couple of books. His latest is a Rocky book, so we'll talk to him about that also, do some Eagles talk with Mike. But the big thing on the agenda right now, Anthony, and when you and I were talking yesterday, you said, the Phillies are going to lose eventually, and the city's going to come crashing down like they never won 9 in a row before. Well, it happened. Both the Phillies came crashing down and the fan base is crashing down over one Zach Wheeler. Really, really rough outing last night. Wheeler and Phils are flattened in Seattle, as Joe Wechter lets us know. But just not himself, Ant. Just doesn't. The velocity's there. The placement's not. I mean, Seattle was just teeing off on him last night. And it was kind of, I don't want to say sad because that makes it look like it's towards the end of a career or something like that, but it's rough to watch right now, and it's hard for Wheeler to go through right now.
So I agree, Bob, and it is a concern, and it should be a concern. That said, I think there was an overreaction, and I feel like the overreaction, I can't tell you, I had multiple people text me last night during the game who said it reminded them of Roy Halladay 2012. And these are people who don't know each other, right? And I'm sitting there saying, all right, that's extreme. All right, okay. Is it a bad outing? Yes. But Roy Halladay had lost it in 2012. He had nothing left. When I'm watching Zach Wheeler throw, I am seeing the normal stuff with no command, right? And so right. It's rare that Zach Wheeler doesn't have command, and when you lose command, why are you losing it? But when he's still throwing fastballs at 96, 97, I'm saying, okay, well, then he's still got it. It's not like he's lost his fastball. He really just, his breaking stuff was just not there. He had no command of the breaking stuff. He had like 1 or 2 decent pitches in like the second and third inning that were breaking balls, and you're thinking, okay, maybe he's found it, and then it went away again. Yeah. So it's a real inconsistent command of his pitches, but command is not something that you sit there and go, oh, well, that means that the player's lost it, he's done, he's never going to be good again. Command can come and go, and the best pitchers are able to find it again, and I'm sure Zach Wheeler will find it. The question is when. Yeah. Right. So that's where the concern is. when will he find it? Can he find it before October? Because it's almost irrelevant. I mean, I don't say completely irrelevant. Obviously, you're still in a playoff race. You're still trying to chase down the Braves. So there are things that matter when he starts the rest of the season. I think he's got 5 starts the rest of the way. So, like, some of those games are going to matter. But it's more about, can he find it before October? And whatever needs to happen to find it before October is what you really have to worry about, not so much each individual performance not being a good performance. So it's more of a grand picture kind of thing than it is an individual thing. But yeah, I mean, he's had 5 or 6 starts in a row now where he's not looked like himself, and he's got to figure it out.
Yeah, last night, 4 innings pitched, 9 hits, 8 earned runs. I think he had, 5 walks, 4 or 5 walks last night, which isn't him at all. He's had an outing against Miami. He went 5 innings, 2 earned runs before that. Then it was 5 innings, 4 earned runs, 5 1/3, 4 earned runs. He had a 3 inning in there that gave up 5 earned runs. Like, he just hasn't been – I think he's got over a 9 ERA over his last 5 starts. It's just something's wrong. I don't know, for people who didn't see the comments last night, he says, it's frustrating. I got to fix this. Wheeler is a perfectionist, and I'll never forget this. We were in Cincinnati last year, and it was ironically right before the thoracic thing came about. And he had a not a great outing the previous outing, and he stood out on the field and for like 15 minutes, and all he was doing, he didn't even have a ball in his hand, and he wasn't even on the mound. He was just standing by himself and like going into his windup and then like really studying his footwork. I mean, watching himself. And this was 15 minutes of just doing something over and over and over again to see if he was doing something wrong. So my point being, he is such a perfectionist. If it is an arm slot thing, if it is maybe where he's standing on the mound because after Toronto complained about it, something changed there. Whatever it is, I do have a strong feeling that he'll fix it because, like you said, it's not so much, it's not velocity at all. It's command. And I don't know. I don't know why I have such confidence that he's going to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, just as a comparator, right? Like, look at what Andrew Painter just went through the opposite way, right? I mean, Andrew Painter was a guy who had 0 command, was getting hit all over the place. He had to go down to the minor leagues for a month and kind of, get himself fixed, work on some mechanical stuff, comes back, and all of a sudden now he's got command of that pitch. And you saw what it was. Yeah, it's starting with a fresh canvas, Joe. You saw what it was on Saturday against St. Louis, where his fastball was dominant.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, like the 100th pitch of the game in the 7th inning on Saturday, Andrew Painter was throwing 99.6 with command, right? And so, like, it was the complete opposite. There's a situation where you had a pitcher who was was throwing his pitches but couldn't command them, and people were smacking him around. And he's 23 years old and had never experienced this before. And oh, by the way, he figured it out. So I would think that Zach Wheeler, who's 35 years old, 36 years old, right? He's a guy who has figured it out in the past. He's had bad starts before. He's had bad stretches before. It's been a while, but he's had them. Yeah. And he's able to figure it out in the past. So I do think he'll find it. When I believe Zach when he says there's nothing wrong physically. I believe Zach when he says that he knows that it's something mechanical or something like he's got to dig in and find it, and that he will find it. Like, I believe him on all of that. So I don't panic that all of a sudden we're at the end of Zach Wheeler, but it's the bad time of year for it to happen for the Phillies.
Well, that's what that was one of the things I wanted to ask you. Not that there's ever a good time to have like 5 bad outings or whatever, but with 5 starts probably left around there, over about a month to go in the season, is that enough time for it to get righted? And people are talking about, well, why don't you sit him and make him skip a start? I heard this today on Sports Talk Radio, like you did a few years ago. Give him a little bit of a break. Give him 10 days off and then let him come back. The schedule really doesn't allow. The Phillies rotation and who they have to maybe pick up for him doesn't really allow. What do you think? It's just like Mattingly has to just keep rolling him out there and Wheeler will figure it out on his own?
Yeah, you have to. And the comparison I'll make, and they said they gave him a break a few years ago, but with that 2022, there was a small injury and he missed a month. And then he came back and was great, right? Going into the playoffs. But look at 23, Aaron Nola. I think that's the one to kind of look at. He was struggling at this time of year, and there was questions then like, oh, what do we do with Nola? What do we do with Nola?
Right.
And then it was like his last 2 starts of the season, he got right, and then he was good in the playoffs, right? I think that's the same thing that you hope for with Zach Wheeler. He's got time, and yes, there is time to fix it. 5 starts is a month. That's a long time in baseball, right? So there still is time for him to fix it. You just got to hope that he does before October, because if he doesn't, if his next 5 starts continue to look like these previous 5 starts have looked, sorry about the distraction, if looking like the previous 5 starts have looked, then you have to start to wonder where he slots into the postseason.
Yeah.
Because that changes everything, right?
You'd think it would. I just have this, not that I have this thought. I think the Phillies have this with Don Mattingly and Dave Dombrowski. He's our guy. He's struggled lately, but he's our guy. We're not going to not go to him. We're not going to make Sanchez or I should say you're not going to have Luzardo come up and make Wheeler the 3rd starter, I don't think, in a playoff. I think he's there. I don't know if the whole season relies or whatever success they're going to have in the playoff absolutely relies on Zach Wheeler, but it's a whole big part of it, right, Ant?
Yes, it's a huge part of it, Bob. And look, remember last year they didn't have Zach Wheeler, right?
That's right.
They hung in with the Dodgers, but they couldn't beat the Dodgers. Now, you can make a valid argument that had you had Zach Wheeler at his peak for that playoff series against the Dodgers, maybe the outcome is different.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, because you saw how they used Luzardo last year, right? And then you saw how they used Ranger Suarez last year. One of them probably becomes purely out of the bullpen and kind of changes the dynamic of the bullpen. Maybe you beat the Dodgers last year if you have Zach Wheeler. Who knows? So he is that important for them. That said, how Aaron Nola and Andrew Painter have been pitching lately could negate some of that if they both can continue to do this. Now, that's a big if, right? I mean, Nola's given you really, he's been really good since the All-Star break, but his last 5 starts have been especially good with an ERA of 2.51. So look, you need that version of Aaron Nola, and then you need the version of Andrew Painter that you got on Saturday. If you get that from those guys, you can maybe survive Zach Wheeler not being Zach Wheeler in the postseason. But that's a big ask. That's a really big ask. It's a crossing your fingers and hoping that you can get that. I'm not certain that you will.
Yeah, but those 2 guys pitching the way they're pitching, it might ease now. It might ease the now of Zach Wheeler. And because, look, it's going to take 3 outings probably for it to be like, all right, let's see where you are today. Almost like an audition for himself that he's trying to write himself, get him where he's supposed to be. But in the meantime, right now, you're not too worried about that 4th and 5th starter in Nola, in Painter, because they have been pitching so well. Are they, here comes our word, Ant, and I'm going to bring it up later too, sustainable. Is Nola and Painter what they're doing now? Do you think they found it? Do you think this is the rest of the year, what we're going to see? Now, look, they've been tremendous, so to expect that is a little out of the ordinary. But do you think they've really found something that can carry through for the rest of the year?
I think with Nola, he has found a way to be effective enough to keep you in games, right? I don't think Aaron Nola is going to pitch to a 2.51 ERA the rest of the season. But I also think Aaron Nola has found a way to go 5 to 6 innings on the regular and keep it 3 runs or less. Mm-hmm. So in that vein, I think that you can get that out of him. I'm more bullish on Andrew Painter because I think Painter has found something. And I said this on my Fighting Words podcast. There's a guy named Lance Brzezowski. He works for Driveline, which is like the big pitching factory, right? It's where Caleb Cotham kind of got his start. And Lance does like these deep dive analytical analyses of pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he's got a great newsletter. You can get him on Substack. I highly recommend anybody who's into that nerding out in baseball kind of thing. You might want to get it because it's great. And it's not just about the Phillies, obviously. It's about all pitchers in baseball, but it really gives you a perspective. And he has a ranking system for his pitchers that he puts out every week. It's a top 100 pitchers in the league.
Wow.
And it's based on how they're pitching in the moment. And he projects a little bit for them as well. And he said, based off of the last two starts from Andrew Painter, he has him as a top 40 pitcher in baseball the rest of the way. Now,
Wow.
if you're talking top 40, that's the equivalent of a number 2 starter.
Yep.
Right? So if that's a top 40 arm the rest of the way, and this is according to, like, it's one person's opinion. I'm not trying to sit there and say it's the gospel, but there are a lot of people that you talk to in baseball who agree with what he puts out there. I think that that's something that you should be excited about. Now, it doesn't mean Andrew Painter is going to come in and replace Zach Wheeler and be the number 2 starter in the postseason. But can Andrew Painter now be an effective pitcher for you in some capacity in the postseason? I believe he can. And as Joe says, that is a beautiful picture.
Wow.
That is so great. Andrew Painter as Bob Ross is so great. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's pretty good, Joe. And it's funny, Ian, because I look at Nola and Painter, and if you're going to talk playoffs, and I know it's still way down the road, but of course that's what we do. I look at it like, all right, there's a great 4th starter right there in the playoffs. Like, you might start Nola or you might start Painter. And if he goes 3-4 innings and maybe starts to struggle or something, you can go to Nola. Similar to what the Dodgers did last year with their starters. You know, they did such a nice job of bringing them out of the pen. Obviously, that's looking way down the road. But if these guys keep pitching the way they're pitching, it solidifies that back end of your starting rotation in a 7-game series.
Yeah,
So
well, it's not that far down the road, Bob. It's a month from Friday, right? So it's coming quick. And you're right. I'm glad you brought up the Dodgers, because the Dodgers won the World Series last year with 0 bullpen.
Yep.
They had no bullpen last year. Now, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, because they have 30 starters that they can roll out at any point. And what they did is they converted a bunch of them to relievers for the postseason. And that's why you saw guys like Tyler Glasnow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Justin Wroblewski and Roki Sasaki and Blake Snell pitching out of the bullpen. And even Yamamoto, Game 7 of the World Series, comes in at the end, right? Like, they used all of their starters as relievers because they had no bullpen. The Phillies don't have the luxury of that kind of starting pitching depth. But I do wonder if Andrew Painter is a guy who, when he's throwing 99 on his 100th pitch of the game,
right? If
you're saying to Andrew Painter, hey, we only need you to throw 2 innings, not 7, what can he get that fastball to? Can he get it to 101, 102, and like really kind of be a difference maker as like a 6th, 7th inning guy to get you to the back end where you're more comfortable with, certainly with Duran, probably comfortable with Bolin, although we're not quite 100% sure yet if he is the guy and as a setup man, but he's been pretty good. Like, I think Painter can be that for them, and that's great. Like, that would be a huge boon to the Phillies, regardless of what Zach Wheeler's situation is.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to see how that all plays out. As much as we need to see Wheeler get righted. I am so anxious to see Nola go again tonight, Painter, see how those guys finish out the season. All right, Ant, we have to thank our friends Wapner Newman, because they take care of us. They are our sponsors. Winners win. And Wapner Newman has been winning for families throughout Philadelphia and New Jersey since 1978. If you need a winner, call Wapner Newman at 215-569-0900, or you can reach them at wapnernewman.com. Speaking of winners, Anthony. Oh, you're muted.
I'm glad you did that read there, Bob, because both Joe Wechter and I forgot to put Wapner Newman's logo on the screen.
Well, we're going to give Wapner Newman a lot of love then this episode. Don't you worry about that.
We just put it up. It was like, oh no, we did that. As you were reading it, I could see Joe in the green room like, and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot it too.
Well, speaking of winners, we're going to bring another one on right now. Longtime columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer and the commencement speaker for my son Bobby's graduation from LaSalle University. Wonderful job there, Michael. Mike Sealski joins us today. Mike, how are you, buddy?
Doing great, guys. It's good to see both of you.
Good to see you too, Mike. Yeah, you called him a winner, Bob. I'm used to hearing him being called another W word.
My man Jake, yes.
That's right. Jake will live forever in Mike's mind. Or no, I'd say Mike will live forever in Jake's mind. How about that?
That's exactly right. I wonder sometimes if Jake and a number of Flyers fans haven't quite moved on from that episode in the way that I have.
Well, it's kind of hard for Flyers fans to move on, and sometimes it's hard for the Flyers organization to move on as they were trying to run the same system that got them a cup only 50 years ago. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But, Mike, we're talking about the big story for today. Obviously, Zach Wheeler last night, not that the Phillies 9-game winning streak came to an end, but his outing, shaky, scary. I don't know however you want to label it, but where do you think Wheeler is right now? Because he's certainly in a rut.
Yeah, I think you put it right there, Bobby. And I wonder how much of this is related to the speed with which he came back, from the thoracic outlet surgery, and if that's catching up to him a little bit. I don't know what's in the guy's mind. I don't know what's in the guy's arm. I will say this is concerning to me. Look, they played great in that 9-game winning streak. It was wonderful for them that Alec Boehm started to hit and that Bryson Stott has been the player he's been over the last couple of months, and that it looks like finally some of the acquisitions, smaller acquisitions that Dave Dombrowski made are paying off, guys like Derek Hill and Byron De La Cruz and all of that. But the bottom line is this, guys, they still have a very weak bullpen. And if Wheeler, as one of those top 3 guys in the rotation, is not elite, the chances of them going on the kind of run that people want to see them go on in the playoffs diminish significantly, because counting on an Aaron Nola or an Andrew Painter to be the kind of guy who pitches in the postseason like those guys have pitched lately is a big ask. I think we all know that the way this team gets to a World Series is if those top 3 starters are lights out, and if they can get the Phillies with a lead to Johan Duran with as little bridge work that has to be done by that bullpen as possible. And if Zach Wheeler can't be that guy, that really, really complicates things.
Yeah, and Mike, it's concerning because you hear him say, "I feel fine physically," right? You hear him say, "My body's good." And then you're seeing that there's life on the fastball. It's 97, right? I mean, he's not been 96, 97 all year. I mean, earlier in the year, he was pitching with diminished velocity and was pitching well, but he didn't have that high end velocity. He's got it back to that. He was throwing 96, 97 last night. He had zero command. And that's really what Zach Wheeler has made his career off of being a pitcher who can command his pitches. And now he's not commanding them. And so I was talking to Bob about this earlier. Like, you got 5 starts left where you can find it again, and that's still plenty of time. But if you don't find it in the next 5 starts, what do you do with Zach Wheeler come October?
Yeah, do you trust him? I mean, that's what this comes down to. I think your point about him pitching well early in the season with diminished velocity is right on the money, Ant. I think, and I wonder if he's got to go through that. No one would compare Andrew Painter to Zach Wheeler in terms of accomplishments and the breadth of their career and maybe how good they are at their best. But what we've seen from Painter lately is a fastball that has finish, that explodes through the strike zone since he came back from that stint in the minor leagues, which is what that fastball did not have early in the season. And I think I kind of see something a little bit similar with Wheeler now. And maybe what it comes down to is he has to throw 93, 94 with command, with a sharper accent on command, as opposed to 96, 97 and cutting it loose. I don't know. It's, if he says he feels fine, then maybe this is just a blip. And we've seen, I mean, great pitchers go through this kind of thing from time to time. It does happen. But it just raises that overriding concern that as good as everybody feels about this team coming off of a 9-game winning streak and the way they went about it offensively and the resurgence of Nola and Painter, you cannot have Zach Wheeler pitch like this and expect to advance in the playoffs. You just can't.
Well, it's funny. It leads me to my question to you, Mike. You brought up the word elite just a little bit ago, talking about the top 3 starters for the Phillies. They just went through a string, and they have gone through a string for a while now that they've changed their approach at the plate. And, things are all different now. And Bryce Harper's more of a walker than he is a hitter at times, and all of those things. Does that lend to, okay, maybe the top 3 don't have to be elite, but maybe just good to very good, that the offense can overcome it? Can that confidence level change, with the offense, that your elite may be dummied down a little bit for the top 3? Or do you think those top 3 have to be exactly what you said, elite?
Yeah, I'll believe the bottom half of the lineup resurgence when I see it in October. That's how I feel about it. I don't mean to diminish what's happened. And I think the acquisition of Luis Arias has a lot to do with this. Guys in the clubhouse have said that. It's one thing for Kevin Long to go into a meeting and preach, having an approach that's different from just go up there and guess and hope you run into a fastball or hope you're swinging slider when the tough righty throws you a tough slider. But to see Arias do it, it's almost like modeling good behavior, right? Like that's always been my only complaint about batting Kyle Schwarber leadoff. Like 9 out of 10 times, I'm totally cool with that. The one reason I wouldn't be is that Schwarber is such a big swinger, and the leadoff hitter is often a tone setter for a lineup, that it's almost like granting permission for everybody who hits behind him to swing the same way that he does. And now that you have a rise at the top of that order, not necessarily hitting leadoff, but high enough in the order, showing you how you can put the ball in play, I think there is a trickle-down effect throughout the lineup. But all of that, none of that matters if they get into October and Alec Boehm hits in October like he has in the past, and Trey Turner hits in October like he has in the past, and Brandon Marsh and the bottom half of that lineup just falls off a cliff the way it has in previous years. And I want to see that in the games that really matter before I say this lineup is different, because you guys know this as well as I do. This team has shown a propensity when the moment arrives, when you got to be at your best, they tend to squeeze the bats into sawdust and tighten up. I don't think it's a matter of like they're not trying. I think if anything, they're trying too hard. Yeah. And I want to see, I want to see them just be loose and relaxed and hit in October the way they are hitting, have been hitting the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Mike, the one other thing to keep in mind, and again, I'm not trying to take anything away from what they've done. It really goes back to, you go back to July 26th. That's when that meeting was, right? It was even before Arise got here. I think it's now 27 games, and then 24 of the 27, they've scored 4 more runs. Right? So their offense is great. They're best on base team in baseball, best OPS. They're really, really good for about a month now. But if you look at who they've been playing, it's been some mediocre teams. I mean, not terrible teams. It's teams that are around 500. They faced a few good pitchers, but for the most part, it's middling pitchers, right? When you get to October, you're facing the best pitchers in the game. All right, are you going to have this approach against Jacob Mizorowski or against Yoshinobu Yamamoto, right? Or are you going to do this? Are you going to go up there against Ohtani and have this great approach, or are you going to revert back to what you were in October's past? That's the big question. And so while I believe that what we're seeing is real and it can be part of what they are, I'm not 100% sure that they don't revert back to old habits, even though they are showing us that they can do it this way.
Anthony, I'm going to use an analogy that's right in Bobby's wheelhouse. A few years ago, when he was still an executive with the Golden State Warriors, Bob Myers was on a panel at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference up in Boston. And he was on the panel. One of the people on the panel with him was Paul Pierce, the great player for the Celtics, the guy the Sixers should have drafted instead of Larry Hughes back in the day. So Bob was talking about the way NBA teams and executives and the people who are in charge of building a roster look at players in the NBA and what really makes a great player. And one of Bob's points was what happens in the playoffs in the NBA is completely different from what happens during the regular season, because those series in the playoffs obviously are a best of 7, and the 6 or 7 guys who before a game in mid-January are looking at their phones while the coach is talking about defensive assignments are now locked in. And the guy on your team who shoots 40% from 3 during the regular season because he's open so often now is going to have a guy in his face who knows exactly where he wants to get to on the floor. Okay? That's a long build up to saying, to your point, Anthony, exactly right. Like once the Phillies get in the playoffs, they're not going to be facing the Mariners or the Marlins. They're going to be facing the Dodgers, the 2-time defending champs, or the Brewers, the best team in baseball right now with a guy who throws 127 miles an hour. And are they going to be able to hit then? Lots of guys can hit when it's May and June and even August. Can you hit when you know the 104 on the outside black is coming and you can poke that ball in the right field for a single? You know, it's the same sort of thing as knowing you have a Steph Curry who can hit a contested 3 with 2 seconds on the shot clock and your team down by 2 in the fourth quarter. And the Phillies haven't shown enough of that to get to and win a World Series yet. And I'm skeptical still that they will.
It's funny. I say this all the time, Mike, that I think contagiousness is so much contagious in baseball more than any other sport. How a team's going is contagious. How a pitcher might be going is contagious to other pitchers. I agree with you. Like come playoff time, is it contagious? Because, we've been here before and we've sucked before, and that's what's in our minds. But to your point, is Luis Ariz the Steph Curry? Is Luis Ariz the guy that, like, okay, he just takes his at-bats the way he does, and it seems to be contagious with this team? Can that be enough to carry them in the playoffs, you think? Or do memories of playoff past override that?
I've long advocated, Bobby, that what this group of players needed most was a guy who treated a game in October just as he treated a game in the middle of June in the best way possible. Like walks into the clubhouse 3 hours before first pitch and says, "Hey fellas, no sweat. We got this." You know, and is just as loose when it's game 3 of the divisional series as it is when it's game 3 of a series against the Pittsburgh Pirates on getaway day. You know, that intangible confidence and looseness that Jimmy Rollins brought to those 07 to 2011 teams, you know, the kind of thing that the 93 team had in spades, the kind of thing that Pete Rose brought to the teams of the late 70s and into the early 80s, not to go too far in the Wayback Machine. But this team just doesn't seem to quite have that. And maybe Ariz is the key to that. Maybe his approach and his, you know, being able to see what a quote unquote professional hitter does on a day-to-day basis and how he approaches it, even when the games matter most. Maybe that is enough. Maybe it is.
One of the last thing I want to talk about baseball wise, and want to get into a couple Eagles things with you, is, you know, you mentioned, you know, him coming in, being really loose and, you know, treating things the same every day. I look at the additions this year, the players, and you've mentioned them earlier when you talked about the Derek Hills and the Brian De La Cruzes of the world. And now you look at Ariz and you see something that's a little bit immeasurable, Mike. And that's just kind of, you know, their energy, right? That they bring and kind of how they approach the game, the sport. And I think that is, while it's immeasurable, it's maybe more important in baseball than any other sport because of the, you know, the grind that it is to be able to have somebody or more than one somebody who can lift the team up when it's kind of going through the dog days like we're doing right now. Do you think that translates in October, or is that just something that we like to talk about, like, because it's just, hey, these guys they're fun and they're exciting and they're exuberant?
I think it could. And I mean, I look at baseball as much as any other sport as a workplace environment situation. You know, that's why I never, you know, I always flinch a little bit when people would criticize a Rob Thompson or a Don Mattingly or a Charlie Manuel for not being the greatest baseball strategist or making decisions. Yes, often those decisions can can make or break a team. But what those guys, what their role is to create a healthy, happy work environment, because that's what these guys are doing every day. They are working. And to be very blunt about it, like the guys you mentioned, the De La Cruzes and the Hills and the Arise, they sure seem like they like coming to work a whole lot more than Nick Castellanos did.
Yes.
And I think that at an intangible level, that does make a difference. You want to work with people who want to work with you. Like, and baseball's no different in that regard. Pro sports often is no different in that regard. Sometimes we make much more out of it than it actually is. This is their jobs. And if you have guys who change the emotional dynamic or the atmosphere in a clubhouse, yeah, that can make a difference. And sometimes that element is not what a team needs. Sometimes a team needs a Larry Boa style manager to come in and raise hell and have some guys walking on eggshells, depending on the makeup of the clubhouse. Maybe what this clubhouse needs is just 2 or 3 guys who are like, hey, great to have this opportunity. So thrilled to be in Philly. Derek Hill, like, so happy to work with Kevin Long because he seems to have unlocked something in my swing. And now I'm hitting the ball at the major league level in a way that I never have before. Like, that helps. I think that absolutely helps.
I totally agree. And you do see it from Hill. You see it from Arise. They have brought a different approach in the clubhouse. Not that it was bad before, but you have a lot of veterans that have been there. Sometimes you need a little shining light or maybe fun in the clubhouse. And I was talking to Derek Hill the other day. He was playing a game. Mike, did you ever hear of pop darts?
No, I've heard of lawn darts. I took one in my eye once.
That was Sal.
What the hell were you playing with?
The family backyard. No, I'm
geez.
kidding. I'm kidding. That never happened.
Yeah, Derek Hill's playing against Kyle Schwarber. And I went up to Schwarber and I was like, what's the game? And he showed me his phone. He's like, yeah, this is the name of it. Order it, whatever. But I talked to Derek Hill and I was like, we were talking about the game a little bit. I said, did you win? He's like, come on, bro. You think I'm going to lose that? But it was kind of oh, that's cool. And he said the same thing to Schwarber. Like, there is just a little carryover there that maybe this team needs. You needed a little levity when things have been so stoic and hard when it comes October. And maybe these guys will provide just that, as well as the hitting they've been doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, it's funny. I was watching Sunday's game with some family members. And through the first 8 innings, they're all complaining about how the Phillies aren't trying. And I'm like trying to tell them, like, just because they're not hitting doesn't mean they're not trying. I'm sure it looks like they're not trying, but that's only because they're not putting the ball in play solidly. You know, all of a sudden they get a couple of hits and, they're trying in the bottom of the 9th inning. Like, they were trying the whole game. And I think, we can project some things onto athletes when we watch them from a distance. But in the day-to-day, you guys are there a lot, the people who are around the team a lot, you can pick up on those kinds of intangible dynamic changes, I guess you'd say. Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. I got to ask you a couple quick ones about the Eagles. There's a lot of hand-wringing going on with the preseason. And I've always been the person, regardless of the sport, I say, I don't just get me to the regular season. I don't care what goes on in the preseason. As long as people don't get hurt, obviously an injury can happen that could really throw everything out of whack. But as long as people stay healthy, whatever's happening in preseason and joint practices, whatever, I find irrelevant. What about you? Are you seeing, like, is there anything that you're watching and going, oh, well, this is going to translate into the season? Or do you sit there and say, wake me up September 13th?
Wake me up September 13th. What if, have people paid attention to this Eagles team over the last several years? Like, clearly the way they're doing it by resting their starters and doing exactly what you just said, Ant, like getting to the regular season healthy, is working. They just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago and had virtually all of their starters in the lineup for that game against the Chiefs in New Orleans. They get off to relatively strong starts. I don't know what people want. I think there's an element of old school, former player, former coach. This is the way we did it, and these guys aren't tough enough. Herm Edwards was on ESPN saying this just within the last 24 hours. And I saw him say this, and I wanted to shake Herm and go, don't you remember what you said? You play to risk needless injury. Like, no, you don't. Like, get these guys to week 1. Never mind that the regular season is now 17 games. It's really freaking long. It's not 14 games anymore like it was back in the mid to late 70s. There's an additional 3 weeks here to this, never mind more playoff teams and more playoff games. Remember, the Eagles had to win 4 games to win the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. So you've got to play the long game here. And anything that gets them into week 1 with Jalen Hurts under center and Saquon Barkley in the backfield and that offensive line ready to go and that defense as it is ready to go, I'm all for it.
So, Mike, you and I have been writers for a long time, as well as Anthony. We've gotten our bad assignments, our good assignments, stuff that we really like. I was teasing my former boss, Pat McClune, the other day about sending me on a women's exhibition gymnastic thing at the old Spectrum or something. Yeah. But the worst assignment that I've gotten through my career has happened over the last couple of weeks. And that was our own Tim Kelly telling me, hey, listen, you mind watching the Eagles game and writing off of that?
Games. En nombre del Padre y Espíritu Santo.
Exactly. Yeah. So I put the cooler down next to me, and I did my job. But I didn't do that. I'm only kidding. But some things have kind of stuck out as, okay, this is interesting, and no more so than Willie Lampkin to me. Like, he is a lot of fun to watch. He's 5'10". Yeah. He's pushing people all over the place. I don't know if there's a spot on this roster for him. I'm assuming there is, but like him and Bell, 6'9" Bell, who plays right tackle and might be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson.
Right.
Like, those two are fun to me. That's what I've gotten out of this preseason so far. Anything stick out to you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've been keeping an eye on the backup quarterback race, right? Like, I wanted to see what Tanner McKee looked like. It always struck me that that final game of last regular season where he did not play well in the second half against Washington, like, people suddenly decided that he's not the potential starting NFL quarterback that we all thought he was. And like, number one, we don't know whether he's a potential starting NFL quarterback, but number two, like, it was one half of one game. Like, there seemed to be a lot of like really severe snap judgments based on that second half of a game, which really didn't matter very much.
Imagine that in Philadelphia.
I know. and I just, I've been to practice once or twice, and I've watched these preseason games, and he looks so much better than Andy Dalton. Oh. Like, it's clear like what they're trying to do here. They're trying to talk up Dalton in the name of a team a week from now, 2 weeks from now, offering them a 6th or 7th or maybe a 5th round pick for Dalton, and they can move him. Because I can't imagine they're going to go into the season saying that if Jalen Hurts gets injured, Andy Dalton's going to save us. Like, no, they have a better chance of winning games with Tanner McKee. It looked like in the last game, he had a pretty good sense of what Sean Mannion and his offense is supposed to look like. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Darius Cooper, I want to see it in real when the football is real. I hear people talk, oh, he looks great and he blocks and blah, blah, blah. Like, all right, let's see. Let's see. Because right now, that's, to me, is the biggest worry, is their wide receiving core. It's Devontae Smith and 3 guys named Sal. And I want to see more from those guys. Wicks, okay. We haven't seen anything from Mekhi Lemon. Like, we have no idea how good he is. So, that would be my primary concern. And I don't know that we've gotten many answers from these couple of preseason games and from training camp.
The one guy that I've taken notice of, and it's really kind of interesting to me, Mike, because obviously with Grenard being out, and we don't know when he's coming back. I mean, if you listen to Vic Fangio, he may not be ready to start the season, right? Even though Howie said he was going to be, or probably was going to be. Is Jalen Hunt has looked pretty good. Oh, yeah. And, that's a guy who, you kind of, this is what the Eagles tend to do. They draft a guy. He gets a little bit of time as a rookie, but not a ton. And he starts to develop. And then when he finally given that opportunity, he just jumps off the page at you, right? Because they've developed him behind other guys, low pressure. Now you can go out there and be that guy. I think that there's a guy there who could end up being a really a difference maker on that defense in 2026.
I agree with you completely. And the reason there are 2 big reasons I like Jalen Hunt. Number one, really smart kid. Just you can tell from talking to him. And number 2, you're talking about a guy who was a safety at Cornell and then Houston Baptist, and he gets turned over and changed to a defensive lineman. Like, the possibility of him improving and growing is so great because he doesn't know what he didn't know what he didn't know when he became a defensive end. The analogy I would use would be like the three of us all kind of came up in an era of when sports writing there was a journalistic way to do it, right? Like you had to have a nut graph, and you had to make sure you mentioned like the full name of every person in your story on first reference. And there's all these kind of rules that you were taught to follow, and that never really leaves you. And I always wonder about this, like, does that limit the way I can write, like kind of limit my creativity and thinking in the way that I write? Same sort of thing I think applies to sports. Jalix Hunt didn't learn any of those rules when it came to playing a defensive end. So he can just kind of, not that he's doing whatever he wants, but he's got so much more room to grow because he doesn't have that foundation that might limit another player. And I think you're right, Ann. I mean, we forget, if you asked most Eagles fans who led the team in sacks last season, they might not know. If you asked most Eagles fans who led the team in interceptions last season, they might not know. And they certainly wouldn't know it was the same guy. It was Jalix Hunt.
That's pretty good. That's good trivia there by you, Mike Sealski. That'll win you a couple beers in a bar, I would assume.
Mike, we got a question. We got a question from one of our fans who are watching. Larry Frassetto says, "What will they do with Trotter? How do you think he fits into the equation for this season?"
I think he's a really, really strong backup. He's a terrific special teams player. Everybody's been impressed with him in camp about, he knows where to be. He's just a football player. You see this all the time from athletes who are sons of athletes, right? You see it in baseball. You see it in basketball. You see it in the NFL. Those guys grow up immersed in the environment and, marinating in what it's like to play the sport. And Trot Jr. obviously had that with his dad, and you can see it on the field. It doesn't mean he's going to displace Jihad Campbell. They didn't use a first-round pick on Trot Jr. They did with Jihad Campbell. But it means that if one of those two guys, Campbell or Zach Baun, goes down, you can feel pretty good about who's coming in to replace him.
He's probably the guy that stuck out among the second and third stringers.
Yeah.
And people he stuck out probably the most so far. But, Mike, I've put this question out to Anthony, to Tim, to other guests, and I'll put it out to you. Besides Jalen Hurts and anybody in the organization, I'll put this, you can say, who's the most important person for this team this coming season next to Jalen Hurts?
Sean Mannion.
Okay.
Sean Mannion. I think the defense is going to be terrific. I really do. I think, in fact, I'm weighing writing this as a column. Like, from the Super Bowl season to last season to this one, this has a chance to be the best defensive era of Eagles football ever. Like, put aside Buddy Ryan and Bud Carson. Like, this could be it in terms of what they have. They're going to be in games because of this defense. To me, it's, can Sean Mannion call plays? Can he maximize what they have in this offense? He to me is the focal point of this thing, other than Hurts.
Yeah, right.
All right, Mike. Last thing I want to ask you about is I want you to promote it. And there's a question about this.
Okay.
So I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Okay.
Our buddy Ford says, Sealski has a photo on his X page of LeBron reading his book. Is this real?
I wish it were. Here's the book. This is the galleys for it. It comes out November 10th, Go in the Distance, Stallone, Philly, and the Story of Rocky. And no, a very clever friend of mine did some very astute clip art and had LeBron reading my book. I haven't had a chance to, LeBron hasn't been made available to us yet, but once he is, I'm hopeful, that he can, he'll buy the book and maybe put it on his socials, and who the heck knows.
Who was your most favorite interview for that book, Mike?
Great question. Well, Stallone answered 4 emails from me over the course of a year. So I do have Stallone's voice in the book. But when it came to favorite interviews, I have to say Bill Conti, the man who wrote all the music for it. Yeah. I had 2 lengthy phone conversations with him. He spoke in real depth about what music means to him and why he wanted to be a composer and the process of writing Gonna Fly Now and all the music for the film. That was really cool.
My question to you is this, Mike, because this isn't your first book. You've done several others, but this is kind of the first one that kind of branches away from sports.
Yeah.
Like what kind of led you to want to do that and not have your next book be just another great sports story?
But the idea for the Rocky book was my agent's, actually. She noticed before I did that it was coming up on the 50th anniversary of the movie's release in December later this year. It'll be 50 years. So when she pitched me the idea, nobody's done a book about how Stallone and all the people involved in the movie made the movie and its connections to the city and all of that. I thought it was a really good idea. And there were enough sports elements, whether you're talking about boxing, whether you're talking about like what was going on in Philadelphia in 1975 and 1976 when the movie is getting made and when it comes out. There are references to Julius Erving and the Broad Street Bullies. And, I get into some depth about what the city and the culture around the city were like at the time Rocky came out. But I've kind of been jonesing. You guys know me. Like, I like writing about stuff that's sports adjacent too, that isn't just who's going to be the backup quarterback for the Eagles. I like writing about tough topics like the hazing incident at Cheltenham High School in the football program the last couple of weeks, and topics like that. So this seemed kind of right in the wheelhouse for that. And I also thought it would reach a broader audience. If you do a book about Kobe Bryant, you kind of have to presume that people are going to be interested in basketball at least to want to buy that book. Rocky belongs to everybody. And you don't have to even have seen the movie, I think, to appreciate the story of how it got made. And
there's a sad part too, and not to interrupt you. Fonzie's a liar. I mean, that's what came out to me. Fonzie's a liar. Henry Winkler lied. And that's sad because Fonzie was one of my idols growing up, just like Rocky was. 10-year-old Bob Cooney did see Rocky like the second weekend it came out with a guy who's still one of my best friends. Never forget it. Never forget coming out of there feeling like, my God, that was a movie. Like, that was cool. And all the Philly references were awesome.
Yeah, it's actually how I opened the book, Bob, is the idea that when this movie came out, you saw things in people's reaction to the movie that you didn't often see, if ever. You could hear people cheering inside the theater from outside the theater. Mm-hmm. You had people like coming out of the theater telling their friends, dude, you got to see this movie. And they're quoting dialogue from it. And they're just flash floods of applause in the theaters when Rocky runs up the Art Museum steps or when he gets to his feet after Apollo's knocked him down in the 14th round. I must have watched that scene, the final fight scene, 150 times, guys. Yeah. And the more I watched it, the faster I was to well up every time I saw it, because I started to understand what went into creating it. Wow. And it affected me that much more.
Wow.
Mike, can you pre-order the book at all?
You can. Yeah. Just, yeah, absolutely. Hop on wherever you want to wherever you buy your books. There we go. LeBron's already got his.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And yeah, just, Google my name and Going the Distance, and, wherever you want to buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, order it now. It would be really helpful if you did, because pre-sales increase publicity and attention, and, kind of one leads to the other. So yeah, please do.
Mike, do you have any more college speaking engagements lined up?
Nothing on the scale of that one, Bobby. I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, God, that was almost 10 years ago now. It was 2017.
Yeah. My kid
you missed the story. He told the story, Mike.
Oh, God.
Let's see if Mike remembers this. So we were at Sixers practice one day, and I'm sitting with Keith Pompey in Camden, and you were just about to walk into the media room, and I seen you, but you didn't know that I saw you or whatever. So I said that I act like I'm having a conversation with Pompey, and I go, yeah, can you believe it? I sent my son to school for 4 years, pay all that money at LaSalle, and they got Mike Sealski as the commencement speaker? Like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. And I turn around and I'm like, oh, hey, Mike, what's going on?
2 words, Bobby: bottom and barrel.
It was a great day, and you were a big part of it, Mike.
I appreciate that, my friend.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. Hey, Mike Sealski, thank you so much for joining us here on the OnPattison podcast. We appreciate your time today, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks, man.
Look forward to it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Sealski, he's got it all going on. I'm really looking forward to that Rocky book.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, like you and I were. You may have seen it when you were a kid. You're a little bit younger than me. But...
Yeah, I was only 2 when the first one came out. But okay. The first one I remember going to the theaters to see was Rocky 3.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was like 80. I want to say that was like 83, 84, maybe somewhere in that 85. I don't know. Somewhere in
Right.
that early 80s, whatever year that came out. That was the first one that I saw in theaters. But I had seen both Rocky 1 and 2 before that, whether it was on Prism or we rented it from some video store or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, but the first one I got to see in a theater was Rocky 3.
I mean, we saw it, and I can still remember my friend Glenn and his sister, who was older because we were only 10. She took us to the movie theater to see it. And I still remember walking out and the line that was, because back then it was like you had one movie was at 7, the next one was at 9:30 because they would play it. And then it wasn't like you had it in a whole bunch of different theaters. There was just one theater. But and walking out of there and Glenn and myself looking at each other, just saying, my God, that was the greatest movie ever. Like, it was kind of life-changing. And my father worked in Philadelphia, worked for the Daily News. At the beginning of the movie, there's a Daily News Inquirer truck that comes through and they throw a load of papers off to a little stand on the street. And I was like, yeah, there's the Daily News. And them showing him training and running and all. Like, we knew because I was in the city a lot as a kid. So we knew all the streets. We knew where he was. And it was phenomenal. And I really am anxious to see Mike's book on it, because
Although one of my favorite things as I got older was when you go back and look at when he's running through the streets, right? And he ends up going up the steps, the Rocky steps at the art museum. Like the path that, if you know Philadelphia,
yes, exactly,
the path that he took does not make any sense whatsoever.
No, he ran like 100,000 miles. But also, and if you remember, the start to number 2 was him going to the hospital after the fight, and he's in the ambulance and they're showing all the sights. Like, he went over the Ben Franklin Bridge. He went like to North Philly, to South Philly. He was I think he made a pit stop in Jersey, all to go to like Presbyterian Hospital or something. It was crazy, but that was the coolness of it,
Yeah,
so.
It really was. It really was. Hey, one last thing, Bob, because I know we only got like 2 minutes left in the program here, but right before we started, you were munching away on your wife's Bitzels.
Easy there. Yes, I was. They are absolutely delicious. She makes the best pizzelles I have ever had in my life.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's great that your wife makes them, and you were talking about she uses the anise oil, right, instead of the actual seed.
Right.
And you like them thinner.
I do. I like the thin ones. I just think thin and a cup of coffee or a cup of tea are just awesome. Now, my daughter just walked out of her room and was shaking her head no, because she likes the thick ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I was going to ask this question. I'm glad that Ford kind of mentions it. He says we have an old Pitzel maker. Is that what she uses?
So my father-in-law used to make them for us. He was great at it. After he passed, my mother-in-law didn't make on, I don't think, all that much, but they had an old maker. Yeah. So my wife had used that until she got a new one. So we have a new one. I know an old Pitzel maker works just as good, but we do have a new one that she, and I'm not, and it is, I could eat these things all day.
Yeah. They're so addictive.
And I never had them before. I'm Irish. Like, we never had them in the house until I married my wife. And then I became a Pitzel freak.
See that? You became an honorary Italian.
Yes. I'm still working on that card, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you about it. So we usually have Pitzels, and obviously being an Italian family, we usually have them whenever there's an occasion to get together. They're not just like around, right? I mean, you guys just had a big party this past weekend for your son Tommy's birthday, and so like that's probably why she made them, right? And why you have some extras around the house. That's what Italians do. We make them when we're going to have people get together. But the time that we really, really make them every year is at Christmas. Right? So we always have Pitzels at Christmas.
Sure.
What I will tell you that I've been a little bit disappointed with my generation of my family, and this is my sister, my cousins. It's less than my mom is still, my mom and dad are still around, but they're not really making them. My aunt, they're not really making them anymore. Like nobody makes the Christmas cookies like we used to make the Christmas cookies.
Oh,
When I tell you we had Christmas cookies that lasted until Valentine's Day,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we had so many of them, like that was, and like they were just Tupperware filled with cookies
Oh,
for
yeah.
2 months. Now you're lucky you get a small tray that lasts you to New
Oh.
Year's Eve, and that's like I'm like heartbroken by this.
I think you need to pick up the slack, Ant.
Well, see, this is why I married a nice Italian girl from South Philly, because she's capable of picking up that slack, not me.
Okay. And here's another thing I want to ask you, not being Italian. So we had a party this weekend. We actually had 2 parties. We had one on Friday night and one on Sunday. But the Sunday party, we were like 75 people-ish. So when you're having that many people in, do you and your wife, do you cook to feed like 400 people like my wife does?
My wife cooks to feed an entire army every dinner, and it's only the 2 of us now, right? Like, I mean, so here's the problem, right? So it used to be when we had the kids in the house, you had to make more food, obviously, and certain kids liked certain things, so she would always make extra. So we always had stuff left over. But the kids have been out of the house for, we've been empty nesters for a bit now, and she still cooks like they're there, and she puts the tray down in front. I'm like, who are we feeding? And she's like, shut up. Like she gets so disappointed. Like, I think she's upset that they're not there, right? Like, and it's like, all right, well, we're gonna have leftovers all week, and that's kind of what it becomes. So
yeah,
she makes way too much food.
Yeah, my wife is great at that. We always have, and then it's always a couple days before. Do you think we have enough food? And I'm like, for about 6 parties, yes, we do have enough food. And so we know what we're having for dinner for like the next 4 nights, various things that we had at the parties this week. But I have to apologize to people if you see me flinching and all that today. I have a horrible case of poison ivy, and it's been spreading like all over everywhere. So I'm a little.
You got
like
the calamine lotion?
I do. I have. I got it on. I don't know where it is, but yeah, it's all over there, and yeah, it's bad. On the legs, on the neck, on the arms, it just keeps going and going. But we're trying to get rid of it. I've never had such a great feeling of turning on a really, really hot shower and putting my arms underneath of it. Oh my God, it's like life changing. It feels so good. But that's why I've been flinching a little bit today. But we did good today, Ant. Appreciate it. Thank you, Wapner Newman, for, of course, sponsoring us again, because they are the best. Thanks to Mike Sealski. Anthony, you're going to be going on the road, so we'll be me and oh, there it is.
Thanks to our roofers. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's great. You should see, I can look out the window and I can see the pieces of the roof falling. Like, and I'm like, oh, this is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Could have been a worse time for this. So,
well, maybe I'll come out there and join you tomorw and see what the place looks like. So
you should come out. Yeah, you should definitely come check it out. So Friday, Tim will be your guest, will be your co-host, because I'll be in Anaheim. He's out in Seattle. I'll be in Anaheim. Unlike Tim, I'm willing to wake up in the morning and come on the show if you want me to pop on to talk about the series. I'm happy to do so for a couple minutes, even though it'll be 7 a.m. in Anaheim. So
we're going to have a special guest on Friday, already confirmed. Tom McCarthy, the Phillies voice of the Phillies. He'll be joining us on Friday to talk some Phillies baseball and to talk about everything. I mean, Tom does football, Tom does college basketball, so we won't limit it to the Phillies. But we appreciate everybody joining us. Please check us out on OnPattison.com. We have so much good coverage from Anthony, from Tim, myself. We're trying to get it all done. And we do, and we appreciate you joining us. We will be back at you on Friday. But until then, keep checking us out, keep reading, and we will be with you until then. And Anthony?
Thanks to Joseph A.
There you go. Our man. All right, guys, have a good day. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you later.